All right, buckle up, everyone. We're going deep today. Deep into Vedomine Vidyan.
Positive science is in the Vedas.
Exactly. Published in 2002, Dr. K.D. Dwivede. So this book, it's taking a look at the Vedas, but like through a scientific lens.
It is, and it suggests that there's a lot more there than meets the eye. Like a lot of these ancient texts, there's this really surprising scientific knowledge just waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah, and it covers physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, even mathematics, like the whole gamut. So where should we start?
Well, how about physics? One of the things that really stuck with me was how the Vedas talk about energy.
Oh, okay. Now we're talking about like ancient texts, right? What could they possibly have to say about energy that we don't know today?
Well, they viewed like fire, wind, the sun, even water, not just as like elements, but as energy.
Yeah.
Manifestations of energy. Like thousands of years ago, they were already thinking about these forces that drive the natural world.
Wow, that's pretty profound when you think about it. Like, they were tapping into something really fundamental about the universe. But did they go beyond just identifying these forces?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
They actually talk about how energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed.
That sounds familiar.
Right. It's almost like an early version of the first law of thermodynamics, that's conservation of energy.
Yeah.
But, obviously without all the modern jargon.
Yeah, no labs, no equations.
Exactly. But even more than that, they even delved into different states of energy. They had terms, for example, stir for potential energy and sarsta for kinetic energy. And to really illustrate this, they use the example of a drawn bow and arrow. So like the stretched bowstring represents potential energy, right?
Yeah.
And when you release the arrow, that transforms into kinetic energy.
Ah.
It's really fascinating how they applied these concepts.
So it wasn't just some abstract idea of energy. They were thinking about it in a way that's still relevant today.
Right, exactly. It's like, yeah, these ancient thinkers were really onto something.
Makes you wonder what else they figured out that we're just rediscovering now. So besides energy, what else in physics, what else did they explore?
Well, they talk about sound. They use the example of thunder, like the raw energy that's released in a clap of thunder. I mean,
Yeah, you don't want to be standing too close.
no, not at all. It's a powerful illustration of how energy travels, and that really aligns with how we understand sound waves today, these vibrations that carry energy through the air.
So that Sanskrit word shabda for sound,
Right.
it kind of takes on a whole new meaning when you look at it through that lens.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's not just a word. It represents like this whole understanding of how energy, works in the world.
So sound, energy, light. What about light? Did they get into that at all?
Oh, light. Oh, they talk about light and vision. They actually acknowledge the 7 colors of the visible light spectrum. And they had specific names for each of them in Sanskrit, Lohita for red, Pita for yellow.
I mean, that's mind-blowing when you think about it. Like,
Yeah.
that's centuries before Newton and his prism experiments.
Yeah.
It really makes you question what we think we know about the history of science.
Right. And get this, the book also mentions these calculations that are found in the Vedas that actually approximate the speed of light with pretty impressive accuracy.
Wait a minute, they had a way to measure the speed of light thousands of years ago.
Well, they used units of time like kala, kasta, and nimesha to measure these really short intervals. And Dr. Dwivede argues that if you convert these ancient units into our modern measurements, it yields a value that's surprisingly close to the speed of light that we know today.
So we're not just talking about poetic descriptions of natural phenomena. They
Right.
were actually potentially quantifying it.
Yeah, it's quite groundbreaking.
That's wild. Okay, so we've got energy, sound, light. What about magnetism?
Magnetism. Oh, there's that too. They use the example of the sun's attractive force on the planets as a kind of like an example of magnetism. Like they were, kind of intuiting this idea of a magnetic field, this invisible force that acts over vast distances.
So they weren't just observing it.
Yeah.
They were trying to understand it.
Right. And the book actually mentions specific Sanskrit terms related to magnetism, which I found fascinating because it shows that they were really putting effort into defining and understanding this phenomenon.
It's like they were laying the foundation for electromagnetism.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now you're ready for this.
Hit me.
The Vedas explored, get this, the interconnectedness of mass and energy.
Hmm.
Now, Dr. Dwiville suggests that this was almost like a foreshadowing of Einstein's famous equation, E equals MC war.
It's mind-blowing.
I know.
You're telling me they knew about Einstein back
I
then?
mean, and not exactly.
Right.
But he's pointing to these specific verses where they talk about the transformation of energy. And he's suggesting that they were hinting at the idea that matter itself is a form of energy.
I mean, that's a concept that completely revolutionized physics in the 20th century.
It did, and it's like it's been there all along.
Right there in the Vedas.
Yeah, so it's like we're looking at the history of science through a completely new lens. Okay, so we've got some mind-bending physics here. What about chemistry?
Chemistry. Oh, yeah.
Did the Vedas explore that realm as well?
Oh, absolutely. And they had some pretty accurate insights, too. Like, they described the composition of water, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen.
Whoa, okay, so that's right in line with modern chemistry.
Right. They were spot on.
So, did they have specific words for these elements?
They did. They had Sanskrit words for water, hydrogen, and oxygen.
Wow. So they were deliberately naming and categorizing the building blocks of the physical world.
Exactly, yeah. And they didn't just stop at water. The Vedas also mention a whole bunch of metals and minerals like gold, silver, copper, iron, and lead.
So they were clearly aware of these materials.
Oh, yeah. And the presence of these metals in the Vedas, it suggests that they were pretty skilled at metallurgy and craftsmanship, using these materials to make tools and weapons and ornaments and all sorts of things.
So we're getting a glimpse into the technology of ancient India. That's really cool. So they were naming elements, they were understanding their properties, and they were even putting them to practical use. Did they talk about any specific chemical processes?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And some of these processes are still relevant today. Like, they describe fermentation, which is essential for making bread and, alcoholic beverages. They talk about distillation, which is used for extracting essential oils.
Yeah.
And even oxidation, which, plays a role in metalworking and lots of other crafts.
Wow. They were really delving into the transformative power of chemistry.
They were. And they had specific Sanskrit terms for each of these processes. It was very systematic.
So it wasn't just like a happy accident. They were observing, experimenting, documenting their findings.
They were really trying to understand how matter interacts and transforms. It's not just observing the natural world. It's like understanding the underlying principles that govern it.
This is absolutely fascinating. So we've seen physics, chemistry, and even a bit of technology emerging from these ancient texts. What about, like, the natural world? Did the Vedas explore plants and animals?
Oh, absolutely. The Vedas show a really deep connection to nature. They actually have this extensive classification system for plants, which reveals their understanding of biodiversity.
Okay, so they weren't just randomly identifying plants. They were categorizing them based on certain characteristics. What kinds of things were they looking at?
Well, they categorize plants by their size, their structure, even their medicinal properties. It's like they were creating their own field guide to the plant kingdom, you know. And they mention specific plants that are still relevant today, like tulasi, neem, and palash, all known for their medicinal and spiritual significance in India.
So their knowledge of plants wasn't just theoretical. They were actually applying it to medicine and potentially other areas of their lives. Now, did they have any insights into, like, how plants work? Like how they function?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The Vedas talk about how plants draw sustenance from sunlight, air, and water.
Wait a minute, are we talking about photosynthesis here?
You got it. And remember, this is long before the concept of photosynthesis was formally understood by modern science. It's like they were really tapping into the hidden language of nature, observing these processes and recognizing the interconnectedness of all living things.
Okay, so we've explored plant life. What about the animal kingdom? Did the Vedas have anything to say about animals?
Oh, definitely. And their approach to understanding animals was really quite sophisticated. They had a system for classifying animals based on their habitat, their diet, and their physical features.
So they weren't just grouping animals by species, like, cats, dogs, birds. They were really looking at their roles in the ecosystem and how they interacted with their environment.
Precisely. They observed and categorized animals that live in the water, those that fly, those that eat plants, those that eat meat. It was really comprehensive.
Did they go beyond classification? Did they delve into animal behavior at all?
They did, yeah. The Vedas describe things like animal migration, the seasonal movements of animals across vast distances. They talk about mating rituals, the intricate behaviors that ensure the continuation of a species. And they even describe the predator-prey relationships that, that shape the balance of nature. They were really keen observers of the natural world.
It's amazing to think that these ancient texts contain such detailed observations about the natural world. And they didn't just observe, they had specific Sanskrit terms to describe these animals and their behaviors, which shows how systematically they approached understanding the animal kingdom.
Right. It really highlights a deep respect for all forms of life, and a recognition of our place within the grand scheme of things.
Okay, so we've covered physics, chemistry, botany, and even a bit of zoology. What else is there?
Well, the Vedas also touch upon technology, particularly in the realms of metallurgy and construction.
Okay, so we're moving from the natural world to the human-made world. What kind of technologies did they develop?
Well, let's start with metallurgy. They were clearly skilled metalworkers, using iron to create tools and weapons, building chariots, and even developing sophisticated building techniques.
So they weren't just hammering out crude tools.
No.
They were mastering metalworking techniques and using them to advance their civilization.
Exactly. And they had specific names for different types of tools, like langle for a plow and ossi for a sword.
So it wasn't just about practical skills. They were developing a vocabulary to describe and transmit this knowledge to future generations.
Right, exactly. And their ingenuity extended beyond metallurgy. They had advanced agricultural practices, including the use of fertilizers, crop rotation techniques to maintain soil fertility, and different types of irrigation systems.
Wow, it's remarkable to think that centuries-old wisdom was guiding their agricultural practices. And they even had specific Sanskrit terms for these practices and tools, underscoring the importance they placed on this knowledge. This is incredible. It's like we're uncovering a whole new dimension to the Vedas, one that blends spirituality with a deep understanding of the natural world. But we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore in the Vedas, and we'll dive deeper into those insights in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. We've uncovered some pretty fascinating stuff so far, right?
It's amazing to think that these ancient texts contain so much insight into physics and chemistry.
Yeah, the Vedas, they really seem to connect the dots between spirituality and scientific observation. Remember in the last part we talked about stir and sarsta, those Vedic terms for potential and kinetic energy?
Yeah. Yeah, that was fascinating.
Well, the book actually elaborates on how they viewed these energy states. It suggests that stir and sarsta, they're woven into the very fabric of the cosmos,
Yeah.
They influence everything.
Yeah.
The movements of stars and planets, the behavior of elements.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about objects moving or staying still.
Right.
It's a much grander understanding of energy, the fundamental force that shapes and animates the whole universe.
Exactly. It's like they were tuning into this cosmic symphony.
Yeah.
Recognizing the energetic dance that connects everything, from the tiniest particles to the vast expanse of space.
Okay, you ready for this? The book mentions the ozone layer.
Oh, wow.
And its role in protecting the Earth from harmful radiation.
I know, right? It's incredible. They actually use the term pariti, which refers to this protective layer surrounding the Earth. It's as if they had this intuitive understanding of atmospheric layers and their importance for life.
So they were aware of this delicate balance in nature thousands of years ago. I mean, it's really mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. And there's more. The book also discusses these Vedic calculations that point to a remarkably accurate understanding of the Earth's circumference.
Wait, are you saying they figured out the size of our planet way back then?
Well, it seems like they did. And what's fascinating is that the method they used, it actually resembles the one employed by the ancient Greek mathematician Eratosthenes centuries later. Involves measuring the angle of the sun's rays at different locations on Earth and using that to calculate the planet's curvature.
So two completely different cultures separated by time and distance, and they arrive at similar conclusions about the Earth.
It's pretty amazing, right? It really makes you think about the universality of scientific principles, how human curiosity and ingenuity can lead to these incredible discoveries across different cultures and throughout history.
Okay, so we've talked about energy, ozone. Let's dive back into the element that's essential to all life.
Water.
Well. We talked about its chemical composition earlier, but does the book go beyond just the H2O formula?
Oh, it does, yeah. The Vedas, they recognize the the profound significance of water. They refer to it as alpa, which encompasses not just its, physical properties, but also its life-giving essence. They understood that water is so much more than just a chemical compound. It's the very foundation of life itself. And it's interesting.
What?
They also describe the water cycle, the continuous movement of water between the earth, the atmosphere, and back again. And they even had a term for water conservation, Jal Sanchayan, like highlighting their practical understanding of this vital cycle.
So they were really tuned into the importance of water.
Oh, absolutely. They observed and named processes like evaporation, condensation, precipitation. But what's even more fascinating is their recognition that water isn't just one thing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean by that?
Well, the Vedas actually classify water based on its source and its properties, recognizing the subtle variations between, say, rainwater, groundwater, and seawater. They understood that water takes on different qualities depending on its journey through the environment.
So they were really paying attention to the nuances of water.
Can you hear it?
It's not just a single uniform substance. Now, did they have any concerns about water quality?
This might surprise you, but they actually describe the concept of water pollution.
Wow.
Noting how certain substances can contaminate water sources and make them, unsafe to drink.
So even thousands of years ago, they were aware of this issue. It really highlights their understanding of how we're all connected to nature and the potential consequences of human actions.
Absolutely. And remember all those intriguing Sanskrit terms we've been discussing?
Yeah.
Well, get this. They even have one for bubbles in water, bud.
Bubbles. It seems like such a simple, everyday thing. What's so special about bubbles from a Vedic perspective?
Well, this seemingly insignificant observation, it actually hints at a deeper understanding of surface tension and the interaction between water and air.
So they weren't just watching bubbles for fun. They were actually trying to decipher the forces at play.
Exactly. And you know what? They also had a term for whirlpools of Varta. It's fascinating how they sought to name and classify these natural phenomena, suggesting a deep desire to not just observe, but to really understand, the forces that shape our world.
It's like they were creating a language to describe the mysteries of nature.
They were. And speaking of the natural world, remember Tulasi, that plant we discussed earlier?
Oh, yeah. Holy basil. It's still widely used in Ayurvedic medicine today.
Right. They recognized its antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties, qualities that have actually been confirmed by modern science.
So its significance has been recognized for centuries.
Yeah. And Tulasi isn't the only plant they used for healing. The Vedas actually mention many other plants with medicinal properties, highlighting their extensive knowledge of herbal remedies. It's like they had a natural pharmacy all around them.
They did. Now, did they have any insights into how to actually grow and cultivate these valuable plants?
Oh, yeah, they did. The Vedas actually describe the concept of plant propagation, using seeds, roots, and even cuttings to grow new plants. This shows a practical understanding of plant reproduction and the ability to intentionally cultivate plants for food, medicine, and other purposes.
So they were transitioning from just gathering wild plants to actually managing and cultivating them?
Exactly. A really crucial step in the development of agriculture and a more settled way of life. And you know what else? They even mention a specific technique called grafting. Joining parts of two different plants together to create a new hybrid plant with desirable characteristics.
Wow, it's remarkable that they had this kind of horticultural knowledge centuries ago.
Yeah, it really speaks to their deep understanding of plant biology and their willingness to experiment with different techniques, and their awareness extended to the challenges of agriculture as well. Like the Vedas even describe the concept of plant diseases, recognizing the various threats that can affect plant health and the importance of protecting crops.
It's a reminder that our relationship with the natural world has always been, complex, right?
Yeah.
Full of abundance, but also vulnerability. Okay. Let's shift our focus back to the animal kingdom for a bit. You mentioned earlier that the Vedas had a unique way of classifying animals.
Oh, yeah. They actually categorized animals based on their mode of movement, how they get around,
So not just by species, but by their way of moving. That's interesting. Tell me more.
Well, they identified animals that walk on land, those that fly, those that swim, even those that crawl or creep. It's a different way of looking at the animal kingdom, one that focuses on function and adaptation rather than just physical characteristics.
It's like they were observing the dynamic interplay between animals and their environment.
Yeah, exactly. They were recognizing these different strategies that allow creatures to thrive in all these diverse habitats. And their observations extended to specific animals that are still found in India today, like elephants and tigers.
Mm-hmm.
These animals were often featured in their hymns and stories, reflecting their importance in ancient Indian culture.
I can see why those animals would capture their imagination. The elephant, with its size and intelligence, it's often been associated with wisdom and strength. And the tiger, with its power and ferocity, it embodies a different kind of like primal energy.
Right, and they clearly recognized that these animals were more than just creatures. They were symbols imbued with this deep cultural and spiritual significance.
Did their observations go beyond like just identifying and classifying these animals?
Yeah.
Did they get into like animal behavior at all?
Oh, they did. And some of their observations are pretty incredible. Like the Vedas mention animal migration, the seasonal movements of animals across these vast distances. They talk about the intricate mating rituals that ensure the continuation of species.
Mm-hmm.
And they even describe these symbiotic relationships between different species, recognizing the interconnectedness of the natural world.
It's amazing to think that they were observing these complex interactions like centuries ago. It really speaks to their deep curiosity and their willingness to just observe and learn from the natural world. Did they have any like specific observations about animals that were particularly striking?
This one might give you chills. They describe the process of a snake shedding its skin.
Ooh, that's a little creepy.
Yeah.
But I can see why it would fascinate them.
Right. It's this powerful metaphor for transformation and renewal. Yeah. And they even went so far as to provide specific names for the different stages of this process, known as ecstasis.
Wow.
Yeah, it shows this remarkable attention to detail and a deep appreciation for the cyclical nature of life and death, even in the animal kingdom.
Okay, we've talked about plants, animals, even the water cycle. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about technology.
Okay.
What did the Vedas have to say about that?
Well, they delved into metallurgy, describing their knowledge of different metals like gold, silver, copper, and iron. They even documented methods for extracting and purifying these metals, highlighting their mastery of metalworking techniques.
So they weren't just finding these metals in their natural state, they were actively transforming them, refining them, and using them to create tools and weapons and other objects.
Exactly. They were really ingenious, figuring out how to manipulate these materials to suit their needs. Yeah. And they had specific names for different types of tools, like langal for a plow and anasi for a sword.
So it's like we can peek into their workshops and see the tools of their trade, understand how they interacted with the materials of the earth. Now, what about construction? What did their buildings look like?
Well, the Vedas describe their approach to building houses and other structures using, natural materials like wood, stone, and clay. And they developed some pretty sophisticated techniques for creating sturdy, durable buildings that could withstand the elements. They even had a term for the foundation of a house at Hishtana, which emphasizes the importance of a strong base.
It's fascinating how these ancient building practices, they reflect a deep understanding of natural materials and the principles of engineering. Did they have any specific architectural features that were unique to their style?
Well, they incorporated pillars and beams and roofs, and they really carefully designed and crafted these elements to create, functional and aesthetically pleasing buildings. And they didn't just have one type of roof, they adapted their roof designs to the climate and the rainfall patterns of different regions, demonstrating a practical understanding of how to build structures that were in harmony with their surroundings.
This might sound a little far-fetched, but the book mentions ancient air conditioning systems. Is that possible?
I know, it sounds incredible, right?
Yeah.
But the Vedas actually describe a technique called Vadagara for creating cool breezes by channeling wind through water-filled vessels.
So they were manipulating natural forces to create a more comfortable indoor environment.
They were. It was a very early form of, sustainable design.
That's amazing. So we've got buildings, but what about like transportation? How did people get around in ancient Vedic times?
Well, they had a variety of transportation methods. They used chariots, boats, and even palanquins, those covered carriages that are carried by people.
So they had options for land and water travel.
They did. And each Each mode of transportation served a different purpose. Like chariots were essential for warfare and travel over land, while boats allowed them to navigate rivers and seas. And palanquins, they were a more luxurious form of transport reserved for the wealthy and the elite. And they didn't stop there.
Yeah.
They also recognized the value of animals for transportation. So they utilized horses and oxen, even elephants, to carry people and goods.
It's a reminder of the crucial role that animals played in their lives, not just for food and agriculture, but also for transportation and other essential tasks.
And now for something truly out of this world. The book describes flying machines called vimanas.
Wait, flying machines, like, are we talking about ancient airplanes?
Not exactly. The Vedas described these vimanas as aerial vehicles powered by some mysterious force.
Okay, that sounds a little like science fiction.
I know, right? But their descriptions in the Vedas, they continue to spark debate and speculation. It makes you wonder what other technological marvels might be hidden within these ancient texts, just waiting to be, rediscovered or reinterpreted.
It's like we're only just beginning to understand what the Vedas have to offer.
Right. It's a reminder that our understanding of the past is constantly evolving. As we delve deeper into these ancient texts and reinterpret them through the lens of modern knowledge, we're bound to uncover new insights and challenge our assumptions about the history of science and technology.
This has been an incredible journey through the scientific wisdom of the Vedas. We've gone from physics to chemistry, botany to zoology, technology to transportation, and even hinted at the possibility of ancient flying machines.
I know, it's mind-blowing.
It is. But there's one more area we need to explore, the world of mathematics. We'll delve into that in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned. Okay, so we've covered physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, even technology. But there's one more area we need to explore.
Math? The world of mathematics.
Yes, math, as seen through the lens of the Vedas. So what can we glean from these ancient texts? Like, did they even have their own number system?
Oh, they did. And it might sound kind of familiar, actually.
Oh.
The Vedas, they used a base 10 system, much like the one we use today.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they had specific terms for different powers of 10. Ika for 1, dasa for 10, shatad for 100, and so on.
So their number system wasn't that different from ours. Did they work with, like, really large numbers?
They did. The Vedas even have terms for incredibly large numbers, like way beyond what we would use in our daily lives.
Wow. So they were able to conceptualize and quantify these vast quantities. That suggests a pretty advanced understanding of mathematics, right? Like, beyond just basic counting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They were dealing with some pretty sophisticated concepts.
Now, did they go beyond just numbers? Was there any geometry in the Vedas?
Absolutely. The Vedas show a really sophisticated understanding of shapes, angles, proportions, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't just theorize about these concepts. They actually put geometry into practice. Like they used it to construct altars and temples.
Ah, so they were integrating math into their spiritual practices,
Yeah.
like using geometric principles to create sacred spaces. It's like they saw a connection between like a mathematical harmony and the divine order of the cosmos.
Right, exactly. It speaks to this holistic worldview where mathematics wasn't just, a tool for practical calculations, but a way to connect with the deeper meaning and structure of the universe.
Okay. So we've got numbers, shapes. What about astronomy? Did the Vedas delve into that realm? Like, did they study the stars?
Oh, they did. The Vedic seers, they were keen observers of the night sky, and they actually developed a surprisingly accurate understanding of celestial movements. They identified constellations, those patterns of stars that have, guided travelers and storytellers for centuries. They tracked the movements of the sun and the moon, observing their cycles and patterns. And get this, they even developed methods for predicting eclipses.
Wow. So they were really watching the heavens.
Yeah. They were trying to decipher those movements. And it wasn't just for the sake of observation. They actually used their astronomical knowledge to, create calendars and to guide their agricultural practices.
So their understanding of the cosmos wasn't just theoretical. It had practical applications for their lives.
It did. It really shaped their understanding of time, seasons, and the rhythms of nature.
This has been an incredible journey.
Hasn't it?
It really has. Through the scientific wisdom of the Vedas. Who knew that these ancient texts contain so much insight into physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, technology, even mathematics?
It's amazing,
It
isn't it?
it really is. It's like we've been on this whirlwind tour of ancient scientific thought, and it really makes you wonder, how much more is out there waiting to be discovered.
Right. And it's a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge, it's a timeless human endeavor. Cultures across the globe and throughout history, they've all sought to understand the world around them using the tools and the methods available to them.
Yeah. And sometimes those ancient ways of knowing, they can offer these really surprising insights and even challenge our modern perspectives. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's a question for you, the listener. Does this exploration of the Vedas change how you view these ancient texts? Does it spark a curiosity to maybe explore the wisdom traditions of other cultures? We'd love to hear your thoughts. But until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into that vast ocean of knowledge that's all around us.